Roskelley Wealth Advisors. Also on the call is Kyle Robertson, my partner extraordinaire, and we run the firm Jackson Roskelley Wealth Advisors and are excited to be here today. So just as a little backdrop or background, I should say, this workshop is one that we've done over many years, and we've enhanced it as things have come to light about different things involving our cyber identities and so forth. And so we hope you get a lot of good information out of it. For planning purposes, we are going to go through a lot of information, so we'd invite you to take notes and just write things down, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. So without further ado, do want to also make you aware of some upcoming events that we'll be hosting later this year. Just next week, we're going to have our second annual pickleball tournament and economic forum. And we still have some capacity there, so if there's anybody that would like to join with us, please let myself or Kyle know. And then in March of 2026, we're going to do our very popular dinner and economic outlook, or dinner or lunch and economic outlook. I like to think people come for the information, but usually there's a really nice meal involved. So feel free to come if you just want to eat with us as well. A couple of golf tournaments. And then this year as well, we're adding 2 additional functions. We're doing some flower arrangements right around Mother's Day, and that'll be Friday, May 8th. And then we'll do holiday wreath making on Friday, December 4th. So looking forward to a fun year. In all of these activities, we will have a little bit of economic information to be able to share with you so that you can be well-versed and well-educated and feel comfortable with what's happening with your finances as well as with the overall economy. So, all right, so let's talk about cybersecurity and identity theft. And I think it's important to note that every 2 seconds, that's how often a member or a resident of the United States of America, it falls victim to identity theft or a cyber breach. In fact, last year there were over 14 million identity thefts reported. And the problem is that most likely your information has already been compromised. Just from the statistic in the last couple of years, we've had some massive data breaches from many companies, but here we list just 3 of them. And the problem is this is like the genie in the bottle. Once the data gets out there in the cyber world, it's very hard to put it back in. So I hate to tell you, but most likely all of our information has most likely already been compromised. And so because of that, a lot of the information that we're going to talk about today will be about how do we continue to protect and be mindful of what's going on around us so that our data doesn't fall into the hand, or excuse me, if our data has fallen into the hands of people that want to do us harm, that we can protect ourselves and our families from any further damage. And historically, our information being out there really wasn't a problem. I remember that my social security number was also my college and high school ID, and it was printed on those cards, which meant that it was out there. But we really didn't care so much about it because there wasn't a whole lot that people could do with it. And so just kind of looking at this graph, because there was a low knowledge of what we could do with somebody's social security number, hence we had low security to be able to protect that information and that data. Fast forward to 2026, now there's a lot of knowledge out there about how much damage can be done if somebody can obtain our social security number. So it requires us to have a higher level of security to be able to protect everything that's going on around us. So hopefully the following few slides will help us to become more mindful, to be able to protect ourselves and our families better. So let's talk about the new cybersecurity rules. I'm going to break this down into 3 segments. The first of which is the secrecy part. And even though all of that data is out, we want to focus on what we can proactively do to help keep further data from being able to be breached. And then we'll move on to the omniscient side of things where we can be more aware of what's happening with our data. And then the last part will be the mindfulness, just to make sure that we're not walking into traps that are being laid for us to be able to snare us. All right, so let's talk about the secrecy part of things first. And if you get nothing else out of this workshop, this is one that I think is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do to help protect your virtual identity. And this is to create a separate secret email address. And let me just kind of give you an example, is that there was an experiment that was run by a guy named Robert Siciliano, and he's CEO of IdentityTheftSecurity.com. Very sophisticated gentleman when it comes to cybersecurity. And he had a colleague who was also very sophisticated in cybersecurity, and he bet that guy that he could steal his identity and access his bank accounts by the end of the afternoon. And so the guy took the bet and just, skip to the end. He was successful at breaking into his bank account and breaching his identity. And when he reported this back, he said the easiest thing to do was to be able to access my colleague's email. And the way that he went about doing it is he started with a simple Google search about his colleague. And with that, he found his posts on Facebook, he found posts on LinkedIn, and he found an online resume that led him back to an old email address from the college that he graduated from. He then proceeded to go to the web portal for that email address and was able to put in the email address and a presumed password that did not work. And he knew it wouldn't work, but then it gave him the option to be able to request, a password. And through that process, he was actually able to get into that original email address because lo and behold, the online resume that he had for his colleague also described things such as his hometown, the high school that he graduated from, and that he was married, and so he was able to kind of gather what city he might have met his fiance slash wife at. And long story short, by gaining access to the email account, he was able to gain pretty much all the access that he needed to be able to hack into his colleague's banking account and information. So anyway, his report was if I gain access to the email, then I've opened up pretty much the whole world of somebody's online identity. So our number one recommendation is that to be able to keep those things which are most secure is go ahead and create a second email address. And I don't know if you're like me, but I opened up my first email address back in the early 2000s, and it was a Hotmail account. Hotmail doesn't even exist anymore. Microsoft has moved on from that. It's now, Outlook or live.com. But, if you still have an AOL account, it falls under kind of that same parameter. But we highly recommend that the second email address be something that's not self-identifying. In my situation, the second email should not be jared.roskelley at blah, blah, blah.com. It should be something that's unique to you, that only you know about, and that you're only going to use for financial transactions. So this would be the email that you would use to link to your bank account. This would be the email that you would use for your credit cards, and even with your accounts here with us at LPL Financial. And then the second part of that is make sure you're using a strong and unique password. And we're going to talk more about that. I'm sure in the past we've all fallen guilty to using simple passwords, password 1234, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. So it's been proven nowadays that if your password is 8 characters or less, the current strength of supercomputers can actually hack that password in less than 17 minutes. All right. So just let that sink in that the computing power now that exists could literally figure out your password in 17 minutes or less if you are only using a simple password and it's 8 characters or less. So a couple of key password rules that we have are that make sure it's 12 characters or more. Okay. And then, of course, you use capitals and asterisks and other symbols and stuff. And by doing that, every character that you add to it increases the probability that it'll be protected and less hackable by an outsider. As a side note, there was a columnist for Wired magazine that thought about the password process, and he was actually really irritated because his work to preserve their cybersecurity was requiring him to reset his password every 30 days. And it was an annoyance to him. It just irritated him and he hated it. But he realized that that was to protect the firm, which further protected his job and his employment and his value to his family. And so he decided to embrace it instead. And at the time, he had just finished up going through a divorce, and he decided to make his password something more meaningful to him rather than being a nuisance in his life. And so he actually made the password part of a daily affirmation for goals that he was pursuing. And to put it in, as he describes in the article, he said that that first time that he decided to do it, he was working really hard on seeing the good in his ex-wife. And so his first set of passwords for the first month or two involved things that he was trying to reconcile with his ex-wife. And it was like things like forgiving her. So his password was an iteration of some sort of, I forgive her, or I'm seeking her forgiveness. And then later on, it became, hey, I need to lose weight. So the passwords were something as a daily reminder to help him to eat healthier and focus on the fact that he was trying to lose weight. But long story short, he came to realize that that password process could be more than just a password and a nuisance, but rather a daily affirmation for things that he was pursuing on a regular basis. So and then the last thing on the slide is just password managers. All of us have dozens, if not hundreds of passwords that we're trying to keep tabs on. And there are some really good encrypted password managers out there. Apple has one that's embedded, as does Google. There's another one out there called LastPass. And these are managers that keep your passwords in an encrypted environment where all you need to do is remember a singular password to be able to get into those password managers. We're very comfortable with those as long as they're used properly. And there's one added benefit to it as well, is that as we're all getting older, it's good with these password managers that you can actually create an additional user, such as your power of attorney or a trusted advocate that you want to help manage these things, that they can have secondary access to the password managers. So if we were to fall ill and we need someone else to be able to manage our online affairs, by giving them access to the password manager, then they would also have access to be able to help administer a lot of our lives that tend to be online. So once again, one of the key rules for being cyber secure is to not only maintain strong passwords, but to use tools so that it gives authority for other people to be able to access them. All right. The next rule I think most of us are already familiar with is two-part verification. And it said that with just a username and password on an account, as I mentioned before, that password can typically be hacked by supercomputers in 17 minutes or less. If we go one step further and do the two-part verification, this then adds hundreds of years that it takes to be able to hack the password. And this is a very simple process. I'm sure many of us are familiar with it, where you put in your username and password, but you're still not granted access to the account unless they send you a text or an email, or in some cases now they're using what are called authenticator apps to be able to give you that two-part verification. But these steps are extremely powerful at being able to help us maintain security. One thing I do want to point out is with LPL Financial, they have an advanced system for the two-part verification. And the first time our clients log into their client portal, they have to put in their username and password, and then they get an email or text to be able to do the two-part verification. That two-part verification creates a pass key on the computer. So if you log back into your accounts using the same computer, the same web browser, and the same internet, then it's not going to require that two-part verification because it already had it embedded in there. If you ended up trying to log in from a different computer or a different browser, then it will trigger that two-part verification again off of the new browser to make sure that it's verifying that you are who you say you are and that you're accessing the data. So powerful technology, but it's super simple to be able to protect our cyber information. The next step that we do recommend here is that you use public Wi-Fi with extreme caution. And I think kind of the key element here is, I travel periodically for work and I'll load up my laptop and I'll need to get on to answer some emails and so forth. But I won't use like the airport Wi-Fi. And the reason is that it's free. And I've been taught that whenever something's free, there's always a cost, right? And with public Wi-Fi, most of the time, the reason it's free is because by connecting to that Wi-Fi, you're giving permission to share some of your personal information to whoever's providing the free Wi-Fi. It could be information about your finances, your spending, in some cases, your location as to where you visited. But all of that data goes into the database to be able to be sold and resold to other people to be able to pay for the free Wi-Fi. Because of that, we don't view free Wi-Fi as being secure. And consequently, then the question is, well, then how do we get online if we don't want to get on free Wi-Fi? And the solution is actually pretty simple. And I've given this presentation probably a dozen times over the last few years, and it never ceases to amaze me how many people are unaware that they're carrying around a free secure Wi-Fi hotspot wherever they go. And this is known as a personal hotspot. So I personally use Verizon and I have an Apple phone. And if you go into the settings section, and it's the same on Android, right here, and you click on settings, right here in your main menu, you'll see where it says personal hotspot. And if you click on that, it will allow for you to create your own personal hotspot or Wi-Fi that other computers can connect to. You'll want to set a password that is unique to that Wi-Fi, and it doesn't have to be, overly complicated. But then once you do this and you click the little green button to turn it on, you can then open up your laptop and you can scroll to available Wi-Fi networks, and you'll see your own phone as one of those Wi-Fis. You click on it, you put in the password that you've selected here, and now you have created your own secure personal connection to the internet. And the only computers that will see any of the information that you're passing back and forth will be those that you have authorized to go on that internet connection. So it's a super simple, free setup to be able to access the Wi-Fi. And it's available on pretty much every cell phone carrier. So always exciting to see this type of technology that makes life a little bit easier. Speaking of Wi-Fi, I would imagine that almost all of us have a Wi-Fi router in our home. And if you're like me, I bought the box from Cox Internet, and they came out and they installed it, and they asked what password I wanted and so forth, and I gave it to them. And so with this, there is always a default password assigned to these routers. We highly recommend that you don't use the default past the first day, that you do work with a qualified technician to make sure that you have a secure password on your personal Wi-Fi so that outsiders can't access your Wi-Fi. It's been well documented that outside hackers that have access to your personal Wi-Fi or home Wi-Fi, once they get on there, they have access to all of the other devices that are logged into it. So if you use like Ring home cameras or Ring doorbell, they have the potential to be able to get into those systems and see what your cameras are doing. So that's why it's so important to be able to have a strong, secure password on the home Wi-Fi that's not the default password that's provided by the internet provider. All right, so we've talked here about the secrecy and different things that we can do to help keep our data as private as possible. Let's move more to just kind of the awareness or omniscience as to what's going on around us. And really the goal here is to make sure that if there is fraud going on, that we identify it quickly and be able to stop it as quickly as possible. All right. This is one of my favorite things to do. So just to give you an example of where this is powerful is I have a 14-year-old daughter and she's awesome. I love her dearly. Many of you know her and she is just a dynamo. But being 14 years old, I don't fully trust her with my credit card. And so giving her a card, for her to be able to go out and buy things and so forth, that's something that I could see being problematic. But she does have a smartphone. And so what I've done is I've loaded my credit card into her smartphone wallet where she can use that on a tap to pay system to be able to buy things. So if she needs to buy some groceries or socks for soccer or whatever it is, she can just do that through a tap function. What's nice about it is I don't have to worry about the credit card being lost or stolen. And the best part about it is this slide right here, is that with the credit card company, I have told them that whenever there's a charge on that credit card, I want it to send me a notification. And so I can track her spending. And so when she goes out and she needs to buy soccer socks, it pops up and it tells me, hey, money was spent at the sporting goods store, which is spectacular. But also being a 14-year-old daughter, her favorite place to go is Target. And so I can easily identify when she's at Target and whether she's spending money that she's supposed to be spending. So by signing up for these bank alerts to be able to identify what transactions are occurring, it's an easy way to identify if the transactions that are occurring are accurate or if there's fraud that's occurring. A great example of this is that there was another writer named Leslie Fredrickson, and on Black Friday a few years ago, she went shopping at Target and spent a few $100s. And shortly thereafter, Target had a huge data breach, and she didn't think anything about it. But the week of Christmas, she went out to do some shopping, and she believed that she had a couple $1,000s in her checking account to do that shopping. But when she pulled up her account, she realized that she was actually $100 overdrawn, and she had no idea where the money went. Well, as it turns out, that Target breach where they lost data, the hackers immediately tried using her credit card number to buy other things at Target, and it caused an overdraft on her account. If she had done this and signed up for the notifications, she would have been notified immediately of any transactions occurring on her account and would have been able to shut it down. Now, as ugly as a story as that is, it does have a happy ending, and that is that she did work with Target and let them know about the fraud and these transactions that she had not authorized, and Target did make her whole. But the problem was is that this was during the holiday season, and it took many weeks for them to put the money back in her account. And during that period of time, she had a number of checks that bounced and there were overdrafts and so forth. So, key rule of thumb here is that by signing up for those notifications, we can be made aware of what's happening on our accounts in the moment that it's happening. And if we see anything that shouldn't be happening, we can notify the bank immediately to be able to protect ourselves from fraudulent charges. All right. The second way to be able to protect ourselves and be aware of what's happening is to freeze our credit. Currently, there are three major credit bureaus that keep tabs on all of our borrowing and spending and lending and so forth. And when we apply for a loan, the default is that our credit is open to any bank or lending institution with our approval to inquire as to our loan worthiness. Now, that's great and convenient for us to be able to secure credit, but it also makes it an easy target for a cyber criminal to be able to steal our identity and borrow money in our name. So, a very simple solution is that each of us could call or go online to each of the three credit bureaus and freeze our credit. And basically, what that means is that we're saying, Dear Credit Bureau, do not authorize immediate credit worthiness to anybody that asks. And the simple result of that is that nobody can borrow in our name without our approval. Now, there is a little bit of a stickiness to it in that if you do need to obtain credit for something, perhaps you're trying to apply for a lease on an apartment or you're trying to buy a new car or something. When that happens and you know that they're going to pull your credit, you need to ask ahead of time and say, hey, which credit bureau are you going to be sending the inquiry to? And let's say they say Equifax. In that situation, then you'll need to say, well, let me open my credit. And you'll have to make a phone call to Equifax and say, hey, I'm applying for a car loan. Please open my credit for the next 4 hours or 24 hours, however long they need. And Equifax will do that and allow the loan application to go through. So very simple way to be able to protect our identities from being stolen and money being borrowed in our name without our knowledge. It is also important to note that the fastest growing segment of identity theft involves that of minor children. And the reason is that from the day roughly since they're born, they are given a social security number. And because of that, that also means that they have access to the credit bureaus. And for most of us, we never think about it. But if you have a teenage son or daughter that has a social security number and a credit bureau, the thieves have realized that that is easy pickings to be able to go out and attempt to borrow money in their name or try to get a job in their name and maybe run up some sort of debt, such as like payroll taxes and so forth. So we do recommend that for children under the age of 18, that you also put a freeze on their credit on their behalf to be able to prevent somebody from stealing their credit and using it, because in many cases where we've seen the thieves be successful is that they've actually destroyed the children's credit before they even turn 18. And then it's a very long haul to be able to repair that credit after they turn 18. So simple things to be able to protect our kids and grandkids from having their credit stolen. All right. Let's talk about the third thing here, mindfulness. And in all honesty, I hope this information doesn't scare us in a bad way. I hope it scares us to motivate us to be able to be a bit wiser with how we go about managing our online personas. So, do want to share a couple of things with you to help bring about some confidence that as we navigate this cyber world, that we can help protect ourselves from really bad things from happening. So right now, one of the most common frauds is a ransomware fraud. And the idea behind this is that somehow a cyber criminal gains access to our computer or our smartphone and basically is able to lock us out of it. They then send an email or a text and say, hey, we got your computer. And for the small fee of $5,000, we'll let you have it back. Okay. And and this is not only happening to regular consumers like ourselves, but it's happening with very large organizations nationwide. In fact, just a few years ago, the leading supplier of natural gas and other petroleum products in the southeastern United States was subject of a hack like this, and they ended up spending over $30 million in ransom to be able to regain access to their computers. Okay, so I don't want this to happen to you, and there are some simple steps that you can take to be able to protect yourself. First are listed here what we call the rule of three. So all of the data that you have on your computer and your personal devices need to be backed up. So obviously you're keeping that data on the device, and that's the number one here that you see that says computer. But then there should be an external device, such as a portable hard drive that we can back up to. And then the third would be the cloud. And what's nice about the cloud is that then you have access to it anywhere as well. But here's the solution: that in the event you do get hacked and the cyber criminal takes control of your device and demands money, at that point you have to make a strategic decision that if you can't get back in, you can either pay the ransom or you can just deem that computer a loss and go out and buy a new computer and then restart that new computer and back it up from your cloud storage device. And usually that's the cheaper solution rather than paying the ransom. But the key thing and the key element there is as long as we've backed it up to the cloud, then we have another resource that we can go to be able to get all of our pictures and our financial documents and past year's tax returns and everything else that we might need. So never want you to be a victim of this type of ransomware. And these are some simple solutions to be able to protect against it. So, all right, we're almost done here, just a few more minutes, but I want to introduce you to a gentleman named John Holdren, forgive me. And by the looks of it, looks like a nice guy. John is very sophisticated. Back during President Obama's presidency, he was actually the director of the Office of Science and Technology. He's a former professor at Harvard and Cal Berkeley, and he actually won the MacArthur Scholarship, which is known as the Genius Scholarship. So definitely not a lightweight learner, okay? But the story that's told is that when he was serving in the White House, he got hacked. And when he realized that he got hacked, it didn't cost him any money, but it had a huge reputational risk to him. And what had happened was is that his wife, who's an attorney, received an email that she responded to inappropriately. And what I mean by that is hackers that were going after Mr. Holdren, they spoofed his email address and they created an email that looked almost identically like it was coming from him. And they sent an email to his wife and said, hey, honey, hope you're having a nice day. Sorry, I didn't see as much this morning, but I'm looking forward to, dinner tonight. Oh, by the way, I'm trying to work on getting some things cleaned up. Could you send me the password to the Xfinity account? And on the East Coast, Xfinity is their version of Cox and Verizon bundled together. So that's their internet and their home phone and their cable television all bundled all together in one. And so, of course, the response from his wife was, hey, hon, yeah, sorry I missed you. Looking forward to tonight. Here's the password. And you can see where this is going right off the bat. But almost immediately, this organization that had performed this hack, they used that password to get into the Xfinity for Mr. Holdren and his wife. They redirected all of the emails to go to them. And so all of the personal emails, they were able to scrub and see what he was working on, see what he was doing, see who he was communicating with, and so forth. They then redirected all of his inbound phone calls and redirected them to a political activist committee that was nothing like any of his political ideals. Okay. And as you can imagine, that was very embarrassing for him. And they did this over a period of days and weeks, and it took him months to be able to get it all fixed. And he did get it fixed. And it was very embarrassing for him, even more so because of his stature and his position in President Obama's administration. So the point of that is that this can happen to anyone. If it can happen to some of the smartest people on the planet, it sure is heck likely to happen to one of us. But I want to teach you a couple principles that if we follow these principles, we can avoid the majority of these types of hacks. And we refer to this as the 10-second email rule. And email is an acronym for examine, message, and inspect links. And so I'm sure all of us are familiar that we'll get an email and it looks just a little off. And you can't always put your finger on it, but there's always something off. And so these are the areas to focus on. As you look at the subject line of the email, is it in weird font? Does it look like it's in, bold and small cap and so forth? We look at the sender. Is that somebody that we're expecting to receive an email from? Greetings. Are they using language that would be appropriate that we would and be accustomed to the way that we speak, or does it sound a little off? And then, of course, grammar. And this one's becoming more difficult to discern because nowadays the hackers may not know English very well, but with the use of a lot of these AI tools such as ChatGPT and Copilot, they're able to draft emails that sound perfect. Okay, so the grammar test is one that we definitely have to be mindful of, but it's not as certain as it used to be. And then signature and attachment and so forth. But if we'll take a few seconds and look at these things and just say, hey, is there anything off here? And 99 times out of 100, we're going to see something that's wrong and just doesn't feel right. And then we'll know that we either need to delete that email or better yet, we need to report and block it to the email provider. So that's the first part about examining the message. The second part is to inspect the links. And this is where the phishing happens, and phishing with a capital PH on it, where the hackers are trying to get us to go to some other link or computer where then it automatically downloads some type of Trojan horse or virus onto our own computer. Okay. And they will spoof these things and it'll look like a legitimate link, but in actuality, if we click on it, it's taking us to a different site that we weren't expecting. And so by inspecting links, very easy thing to do. And I put some sample links here where that we might see these in a typical email where, oh, cool, I got an email from Elon Musk. That's, I'm excited. I want to email Elon Musk, or maybe I don't want to email Elon Musk, doesn't matter. But the key thing to do is don't click on the link, but you can move your mouse over that link and a pop-up will occur. And when you look at the pop-up, you can see the exact email address or link that you would be directed to if you were to click on that. And in this sample case, I just put in, scammers.emailaddress@gmail.com. So not all of them are going to be that obvious that they're scamming you, but more likely they're going to be a crazy email address that you're like, yeah, I'm pretty certain that thing is not legit. And so don't click on it. If you see that, this is where you want to delete or you want to report and block the email as phishing. Similarly here on this click here to win, if you mouse over it, don't click on it, but if you just mouse over it, you'll get the pop-up and it'll show you what the actual link is to be able to avoid getting stung. So, all right. So the third part of this that for this afternoon is just to take action. And I would challenge you to write down things that you want to do to be able to help secure your online identity. Historically speaking, as we've given this presentation, the three most common action items that our clients have shared with us that they're going to pursue are these three. And maybe this is similar to you, but definitely would recommend that you implement all of the previous slides to be able to protect yourself, online. The first one is to set up that second email and to be able to make sure that you're using a strong password with it. The second one is to use a personal hotspot using your cell phone as opposed to free public Wi-Fi. And then the third one is that 10-second rule where you examine the message and inspect the links before clicking. And these three things, if you set them up effectively, should be the most powerful things that you can do to help protect your online identity. And then some other considerations as we're getting more sophisticated on how to protect ourselves. Unfortunately, the cyber community or the cyber criminal community is also becoming more sophisticated on how to hack us. There's also a huge online AI thing that's going on that can also seem very legitimate, but is out to hurt us. So these are some other resources that I personally pay attention to be able to help minimize the cyber theft community from attacking me. Recently, I turned 50 years old and I legally qualified for AARP. Very proud of that. But AARP every other week sends out a notification or publication called the Senior Fraud Alert newsletter. And it is a great newsletter that provides a short briefing of different hacks that are going on. And one of them that they reported on that's been very successful for the criminals is that of the grandchild hack. And you've probably heard it in one version or another where they're literally using AI robots to call grandparents, and the AI robots mimic the sound and the language of a grandchild. And usually it goes something like this. The robot will say, "Hey, Grandma, I'm really sorry to call, but I was down here in Mexico and I got in trouble. Can you send me $2,000 to help get me out of jail? And as you can imagine, I'm really embarrassed. I don't want my parents to know. Would you help out by sending me the money?" and and the grandparents are falling for it because it sounds like their grandchild. And where this is so difficult to decipher is that the AI bots, they are going and they are scrubbing kids' pictures from Facebook and Instagram, and they're able to see their TikTok videos and be able to mimic their sound of their voice and recreate scripting that sounds exactly like that grandchild. And so AARP reported this and so has been able to shut this down quite a bit. But this newsletter is good to be able to help us stay away from a lot of those threats. Just so you're aware, the solution to this is that every family may want to consider having some sort of secret word or secret phrase that they use to be able to validate. So if you do get an AI robot calling you and trying to mimic a grandchild who's in distress, then you just ask them what's the key phrase or what's the passphrase, because most likely the AI robot would not know that, and then you would know with confidence that that you're trying to be scammed as opposed to having a grandchild that is in distress. So that's one option to consider. Nomo Robo, this is a service that you can sign up for, and you can register your personal cell phone and any landlines that you have, and it's really good at scrubbing away most of the robo telemarketing calls. I highly recommend this for our older generation that is more likely to be targeted by the cyber criminals, to be able to protect against those auto dialers that might come out and try to solicit money. The third item here is we do recommend that you talk to your insurance agent to review your homeowner's insurance. And think about this way is that we traditionally have said, hey, if a thief walks into my house and steals jewelry and a television, we're always grateful that we have that homeowner's insurance to be able to reimburse us for the loss. Well, the insurance community understands that losing our online identity or having money stolen from us through identity theft is just as severe, and in many cases, it's even more severe than somebody walking into our home. And so most homeowners policies now will have some form of cyber or identity theft protection. Most of the time it'll replace anything that's lost, but it won't cover the efforts and the money that it takes to be able to repair and replace, or excuse me, repair your online identity. But nevertheless, something that we do recommend that you talk to your insurance agent about to make sure that you have adequate coverage. And then the fourth part is you may want to consider identity theft insurance coverage. Um, I would say 20 years ago, this was much more necessary than it is today. But it is something that you can consider if you want to really lock down your online identity and be able to protect yourself for the long term. So with that, everybody, do appreciate your attention and appreciate all that you do in helping us to be an outstanding place to work and be able to serve you and your needs for yourselves and your families. So Kyle and I are going to stay on the line and we'll continue to be here for some questions and answers. But if there's anything that we can do to help, please do not hesitate to reach out, as we're always eager to know what's on your mind and what we can do to be of assistance. So thank you very much.
Okay, Jerry, we got a couple of people with their hands up here. So let's see. Luis, if you would like to ask a question, you can also ask a question in the Q&A down at the bottom if you prefer to do that and not speak on the webinar here. So, all right, Luis, I asked you to unmute if you'd like to talk, or you can also do it on the Q&A. Okay, I'm gonna go to Carol.
Hello.
Hi, Carol.
Hi there. I have a question on the personal hotspot. When you showed us the screen and there's that little green button, um, is that to be turned on or turned off? That one.
Oh, great question. So when it's grayed out, it is off. And so here's what I do personally is when you're using that Wi-Fi, it is going to use more of your battery. And so most of the time I have it in an off position. But then when I need to use it, I just go in and I click it on, and then that turns on the Wi-Fi. And what's nice is that I don't have to put in a new password or anything, and my computer recognizes it immediately as well. So you only have to turn it on when you're going to use it.